You walk to the kitchen and your dog gets up. You head down the hall and your dog follows. You stop at a closed door and a few seconds later, there it is again. Quiet, waiting, close enough to hear you, close enough to know the moment you come back out. Most people see that and come to one of two conclusions. The dog is overly attached, or the dog just loves you that much. Both explanations feel true on the surface, but behavior researchers have spent years studying this exact pattern, and what they found is more interesting than either answer, because in many dogs, this behavior is not really about desperation. It may be about orientation. It may be about information. And in a surprisingly deep way, it may be about how your dog has learned to use you as its most trusted reference point in the world. That changes the picture, doesn't it? The dog at your feet stops looking like a needy shadow and starts looking more like an animal using a social bond exactly the way it was designed to. In the scientific literature, dogs who constantly stick close to their humans are often called Velcro dogs. The phrase sounds almost like a warning, like something has gone slightly wrong. But for many dogs, following a person from room to room is not a dysfunction. It is a pattern with logic behind it. One of the clearest explanations comes from research on something called the secure base effect. In one study at the Clever Dog Lab in Vienna, dogs were given a difficult food puzzle, something frustrating enough that the dogs could not solve it immediately on their own. The researchers then changed one simple factor: whether the owner was in the room. When the owner stayed, the dogs generally worked longer. They stayed engaged. They kept trying. When the owner left, many dogs gave up sooner. Then the researchers tried another variation. They placed an unfamiliar person in the room to see whether any human presence would create the same effect. It didn't. That matters, because it suggests that the dog was not just comforted by having a warm body nearby. What helped was the presence of a specific trusted person. In many cases, your dog does not follow you because it is incapable without you. Your presence may simply make exploration, problem solving, and uncertainty feel easier to handle. That is what the secure base idea helps explain. A secure base is not a crutch. It is a point of stability. A child standing at the edge of a playground may keep checking where the parent is, not because the child is falling apart, but because one reliable person makes the rest of the space feel safer to navigate. For many dogs, owners seem to work in a similar way. So when your dog waits outside the bathroom door, the behavior may not mean, "I can't cope without you." Sometimes it means something closer to this: you're where the map makes sense, and that is only one layer of the story. There is another behavior researchers often notice in dogs, and once you understand it, the room-to-room following starts to look even more purposeful. When dogs encounter something new or uncertain, many of them look at the thing and then look back at their owner. Animal cognition researchers call this referential looking. In studies like those conducted by researchers in Milan, dogs exposed to unusual objects often check their owner's face before deciding what to do next. A positive response from the owner could encourage approach. A worried or negative response could increase hesitation. In other words, many dogs are not just reacting to the world directly. They are also reacting to your reaction. That means your face, your posture, your tone, and even your pause before moving all become part of the information your dog uses to understand what a situation means: safe or unsafe, interesting or irrelevant, worth approaching or worth avoiding. Now think about what that requires physically. If your dog uses you as a source of social information, then staying near you is not only emotional, it is practical. To check your cues, your dog needs access to your cues. That means the following behavior may often be less about clinginess and more about keeping the connection available. Not "pay attention to me," more like "stay where I can read you." And suddenly, a lot of small behaviors make more sense. The dog who lifts its head when you stand up. The dog who changes rooms when you do. The dog who watches you put on shoes as if something important is about to happen. To us, these are tiny movements. To a dog, they can be early signals in a chain of events that often lead somewhere meaningful. And that becomes even more obvious in homes with multiple people because most dogs do not follow everyone equally. Usually, there is one person they monitor more than the others. People often call that the favorite person. Sometimes that may be true emotionally, but from a behavior perspective, another explanation can be just as important. Dogs pay attention to consistency. Who feeds them most often? Who reaches for the leash? Who opens the door before walks? Who reliably starts the routines that matter? Dogs are excellent pattern readers. Over time, many of them learn which human actions tend to predict outcomes that affect them. So, the person they follow most may not just be the person they adore most. It may be the person whose movement carries the most information. That is a very different kind of compliment. It means your dog has learned that your behavior matters. And when the environment is unfamiliar, that habit of tracking a trusted person can become even stronger. Recent research has suggested that in new or uncertain settings, dogs may copy actions performed by their caregivers even when those actions are not the most efficient route to a reward. In those moments, the dog is not necessarily being submissive or confused. It may simply be using a trusted social partner as a guide when the rules of the environment are unclear. That makes following look less like dependence and more like strategy. When the world feels uncertain, staying close to the one who probably understands it better can be a smart move. And there is a broader reason many dogs are so good at this in the first place. Dogs are not just animals that happen to live beside humans. Over thousands of years, they have been shaped to notice us, respond to us, and stay engaged with us in ways that set them apart from most other species. Research in canine genetics has suggested that some aspects of dogs' unusual sociability may be tied, at least in part, to biological changes linked to domestication. That does not mean every dog behaves the same way. It does not mean training. Temperament, breed tendencies, or life experience do not matter. They do, but it does support an important idea. For many dogs, staying near humans is not some random quirk. Human closeness has long carried value. Human signals have long carried meaning. Human attention has long been worth tracking. So, in many cases, when your dog follows you, it is not displaying a flaw in its personality. It may be expressing one of the deepest features of the dog-human bond itself. But now we come to the part every owner needs to hear clearly. Following you around is not automatically the same thing as separation anxiety. Those two things can overlap, but they are not identical, and confusing them can lead people in the wrong direction. A socially bonded dog may follow often and still be emotionally stable. It may trail you to another room, lie down nearby, and relax. It may prefer your presence, but still settle when you are unavailable for a while. A dog struggling with a clinical anxiety issue usually shows something more intense. The urgency does not fade easily. The inability to settle shows up quickly. Even brief separation can trigger escalating distress. This isn't a diagnosis, but it can help you tell the difference between normal attachment and behavior that may need support. That distinction is important. Following is often about connection. Clinical anxiety is about dysregulation. One can be a normal feature of the relationship. The other may require real help. So, what should you actually look for? A healthy follower often shows flexibility. The dog checks on you, then settles, follows you, then rests, chooses proximity when available, but does not unravel when access is interrupted. A dog who may need support often shows a different pattern: frantic pacing, vocalizing, destructive behavior during absences, inability to relax, intense distress at barriers, or agitation that escalates the moment separation begins. That is when the question changes from, "Why is my dog always near me?" to, "Is my dog struggling to cope?" And that is a much more useful question, because owners often make one of two mistakes. Some assume all shadowing behavior is unhealthy, and they start treating normal attachment like a problem. Others romanticize genuine distress because it looks like devotion. Both mistakes can cause harm. So if your dog follows you often, the better thing to evaluate is not the behavior alone, but the quality of the nervous system behind it. Is the dog calm or restless, soft or frantic, able to switch off or always on alert? That tells you more than the footsteps ever will. And there are practical ways to support healthy independence without punishing normal closeness. You can reward calm, settling on a mat or bed. You can create predictable daily rhythms. You can offer food puzzles, sniffing activities, or rest routines that do not depend on constant human movement. And you can avoid accidentally teaching your dog that every time you stand up, something exciting is about to happen. That last one matters more than many people realize. If standing, walking, opening doors, or reaching for objects constantly leads to food, play, attention, or outdoor access, your dog learns that your movement is valuable data. Once that pattern is built, following becomes efficient, not irrational, not broken, efficient. In a strange way, some dogs are not clingy at all. They are simply very good at paying attention. And maybe that is the most moving part of all this. Your dog has spent day after day learning the shape of your habits, the sound of your footsteps, the meaning of your routines, the difference between a meaningless trip across the house and the first movement in a sequence that leads outside, to food, to play, or to rest, long before you notice your dog watching you. Your dog has already been studying you. That study becomes trust. That trust becomes orientation. And that orientation becomes closeness. So the next time your dog is waiting outside the bathroom door, maybe the scene is not as simple as it looks. Maybe your dog has chosen the spot with the best sensory access to the person it trusts most. Maybe it is staying where your sound, your scent, and your movement remain available. Maybe it is not demanding contact at all. Maybe it is simply keeping the most important signal in range, because in your dog's world, you are often more than company. You are a reference point, a predictor, a source of meaning inside the environment. That is not a small role, and perhaps that is why this behavior feels so personal when we finally understand it. Out of every sound in the house, every shifting light, every passing distraction, your dog still finds you worth tracking. Not because something went wrong, but because, for many dogs, staying close to a trusted human is one of the most natural things they can do. This is Mr. Hidden Mind, where small behaviors often reveal the deepest bonds.